This is a DIY eye tracking system that I built for under $50. However, professional grade products can cost upwards of $10,000. Why is eye tracking so expensive and so inaccessible? In this video, I'm going to explain the fundamental math and algorithms behind 3D eye tracking technology so that you can better understand how it works and why companies can charge thousands of dollars. If you're building your own eye tracker, learning about computer vision, or planning to use eye tracking in your research, this video should be helpful. Though there are many types of eye trackers, I'm going to be focusing on near eye tracking, since the fundamentals also apply to most other types of trackers. Our goal is to go from a raw video to a gaze ray projected out into space, which will let you compute a gaze point on a forward-facing camera or in any mixed reality headset. Let's start with the image of an eye from an infrared camera, which is commonly used to get a clear view of the pupil. We need the path from the eyeball center to the center of the pupil, which mathematically can be computed from the eyeball sphere. Though the eye itself is not perfectly spherical, assuming it's a sphere works relatively well for our purposes. So how do you go from a 2D video of the eye to a 3D gaze ray? Essentially, you need to build a 3D model based on 2D observations, mainly ellipses created from the pupil. To find the pupil ellipse, you can generally use a series of thresholding operations for dark areas, refine points on the border of that threshold, and run ellipse-fitting algorithms to fit the ellipse to the pupil outline. We first need to find the darkest, most uniform patch of pixels in the entire image. This is accomplished with sparse sampling to check pixels around points in the image and return the darkest of these values. The final darkest point is highlighted by a large red dot. Now that we have a point on the pupil, the more challenging step is to accurately determine the pupil contour. Most algorithms start with something called binary thresholding, which converts dark pixels below a threshold to one value, and lighter pixels above that threshold to a different value, typically 0 or 1. However, as you can see here, the pupil region is often not uniform due to changing angle or lighting conditions. To solve this problem, we're going to make use of what is called cascaded thresholding, which selects the best thresholding values out of 3 options. Here you can see 3 different windows that use increasingly relaxed threshold values to include more and more of the pupil. The base threshold values for each of these windows is determined using the value returned from the darkest patch we had earlier. The best ellipse is taken from the best fit of these 3 images, i.e. whichever ellipse has the most pixels in common with a perfect ellipse. But the pixels taken from this pupil contour still need refinement to determine the real pupil border. If a contour point is correct, it must form an elliptical shape, i.e. it will be concave relative to the center of the pupil. Consequently, angles formed by the sets of points on the ellipse will be directed inwards towards the pupil center, not outwards into space. To filter these points, you can evaluate sets of 3 points across the entire contour and compute whether the angles formed point inwards or outwards. Inwards points are kept, while outwards points are left out, resulting in a higher number of true pupil ellipse points. Fitting another ellipse to this filtered set of points gives us the final pupil ellipse estimate. However, we are still only half done. We can now make 2D observations from the camera's frame of reference, but in the end we need a 3D model of the eye. To determine the center of a 3D sphere, we first have to use the ellipses from multiple 2D observations to compute the 2D eye center from the camera's perspective. In other words, if we have an adequate number of 2D ellipses, this will let us trace back where the eye center is in 2D, also allowing us to estimate the center in 3D. In a perfect world, we would just need a few ellipses to make this happen. However, because the pupil ellipses returned from the pupil finding algorithm are not perfect, we need to use a larger number of ellipses and estimate which ones correspond to the true eye center. We're going to start by determining the eye center in 2D and then solving for 3D parameters afterwards. For a 2D eye center, the problem becomes a bit easier since we just need to compute common intersections of lines passing through the pupil. To find the true eye center, we just take a few sets of these lines and determine if 3 or more lines at varying angles intersect at the same location. Once a valid intersection is found, we store a list of the last 30 or so intersections and take the average value as the eye center. Now comes the toughest part, which is computing a 3D gaze ray based on the 2D pupil and 2D eye center. The trick is to convert those 2 points into 3D in a way that's physically consistent with a spherical eye model. All lines passing through the center of, and orthogonal to, each pupil ellipse must also pass through the center of the 3D eye sphere. To estimate this, we place a temporary eyeball sphere on a reasonable model space plane and assume its 3D size using the knowledge that most human eyes are approximately 24 millimeters in diameter. To determine its position, we place its center at the middle of our computed 2D eyeball center, with its depth set to the position that results in the best fit of its border to the set of candidate pupils. Finally, we need the 3D pupil center. To compute this, we need to find the point on the 3D sphere at which the 2D pupil screen coordinate intersects in 3D space from the camera's perspective. By projecting a ray into the far plane and determining the point of intersection on the 3D sphere, we can determine the rotation of the sphere such that the gaze ray passes through that intersection on the sphere's surface. That intersection point is our 3D pupil center estimate on the spherical model. Finally, from the computed 3D eye center and corresponding 3D pupil center, we just take the direction vector between the two, and this becomes your 3D gaze ray. From this ray, you can compute a gaze point in virtual reality or on a forward-facing camera. In a future video, I'm going to go over the calibration process and show you how the gaze ray can be used in a virtual or augmented reality environment. Please subscribe or consider joining the channel to help support this and other open source projects, and thanks for watching.